What's up, guys? It's Dan, and I'm back in the shed. It's been, I don't fucking know how long, but I'm just gonna get right into it. No intro. I'm working on the light up beam sight for the Deathscythe cosplay. But before I start, I did sort of try to work on it. I came up with this. This is just pretty much how I want it to be. This is just made out of foam core, and it's pretty good. It's almost 4 feet long. My old scythe blade was just under 3 feet. It needed to be longer, so I'm gonna do that. And I plan to make it look like this. This is kind of modeled after the HGAC 1144 high grade. So it'll look like this. It'll be green. It'll light up, and it'll look sick. And I know I mentioned I wanted to get this done by the next anime, Winter, which is in early January. And the fact that I'm here, it's November or mid-November, I'm here in the shed, I'm working on it, so there's a chance it could be done by then. There's a more close-up view of what I have here. I'm going to be using this to make my templates off, and I plan on using polycarbonate. It'll be clear, it'll be hopefully light, not as light as this, but hopefully light enough. And I'll diffuse it, I'll throw in a structure to mount the LEDs, and yeah, pretty much how the blade's gonna be. And for the emitter box, I plan on pretty much making the same thing. It'll be made out of Sintra instead of foam. This is all foam because it's all foam. It didn't need to be anything special, but I'll have to make it out of Sintra so it can be more sturdy, take the weight, be more sturdy, and more sturdy. I don't know, but yeah. I can use this as a template, obviously, and shouldn't take too long. To make this out of Sintra, I assume the blade portion will be more time consuming because of how I have it planned out in my head on how to make. But yeah, having a glowing beam sight will surely step up my Deathscythe cosplay by miles. So that's what I'm hoping.
I throw in some foil and duct tape over the foam core blade to get my patterns. The blade design has 3 sections which will overlap when assembled, and I just need to pattern one side of the blade since it's going to be symmetrical. I can just flip over the pattern pieces to make the other side. I transfer the patterns onto some cardstock since it'll be easier to work with and less flimsy. I also extend some areas about 1/4 inch, which is where the pieces will overlap, similar to a seam allowance when you're sewing.
Alright, so I got all pieces transferred to cardstock. You can see how long it is. Now, unfortunately, this may need to be tweaked to make all of these pieces fit onto this. This is 2 feet long, and the longest piece is more than that. Even at an angle, it won't be enough. So I'm gonna have to do some changes. Hopefully it won't shrink too much, but thinking about this at a con, it's okay for it to be a bit shorter. It is gonna be long. It's gonna be longer than the first one I made. Here's the comparison. You can see the difference here. But I'll try to make something work out so I can keep the length of this. Now, one thing that I have to do with these pattern pieces, there's a seam, a center seam on this entire blade, as you can see, running the entire length. I have to transfer that onto here and cut them out. So this blade's going to consist of a bunch of pieces that I'm going to be gluing back together. And hopefully when everything is put back together, both sides, it'll be... I know it'll be sturdy enough. Weight-wise, I'm just going to have to see when it's assembled. We'll just have to see how it goes. And I'll just keep continuing to build this and let you know.
I traced the patterns onto some 1/16 inch thick polycarbonate sheet. I label one side A, B, and C, and the other 1, 2, and 3 to help me keep track of what pieces are left and what pieces are right. And as I mentioned before, the blade has a center seam running the entire length. So I cut the pattern pieces along that center seam line so I can trace that line as well onto the sheet. I use my bandsaw to cut out all the pieces since it's way too thick and sturdy to cut out with a blade by hand. I cut them all out roughly and clean up all the cuts with my rotary tool. And here's all the blade pieces lined up together. It comes out to just under 4 feet long. To make the center seam, I use a Dremel with a small milling bit to carve out a channel right into the pieces. Now, I'm just scoring a groove into them, not cutting all the way through. This will help me bend the pieces to create the peak of the blade that runs all the way through. As you can see, I'm freehanding this, so it's not perfect, but damn well close enough for what I need. And notice I said Dremel and not rotary tool. Yes, it's an actual Dremel. And here's how the pieces look with the center peak bent into them. This will really help give the blade some dimension.
Alright, so I got all of my blade parts here. I can actually peel all of this off. Now, I don't plan on having it to be crystal clear. I want to diffuse it, so I'm thinking of just sanding it down to diffuse it, and possibly something else on the inside. I can probably spray some kind of frost. It is going to be painted anyway, painted green with a brush. For now, I can sand these down, get it all scuffed up for initial diffusion, and glue them together. Glue each half together. I can't put it together yet because I need to come up with the LED structure inside it. Alright, so I got one side all glued up. I just used super glue and accelerant, and it does have, you can see through it, it's got that going on, but that's fine because I plan on diffusing this as much as I can. I have to, since the LEDs are going to be really close to it, and trying to tone down the hot spots that it will create, especially in pictures and video. But yeah, this is one side of the blade. You can see how much longer this is. Compared to the original. There's the size difference. So it's roughly a foot longer. This is close to 4 feet long. It may be 4 feet long at the end of the emitter box, but this is going to look way better. It's going to light up. It needs to light up. And I'm kind of sick of this one. So yeah, I just need to put the other side together as well, and then paint it, figure out more diffusion, and come up with my light system, which I think I'm just going to have the LEDs light up the outside of it along the perimeter, and then the inside, whatever I'm using to hold the LEDs, maybe polycarbonate strip or something, I'm going to put reflective on the inside of that, because I also plan on making LEDs emit from here, so it'll light up the inside here and hopefully bounce around the light enough to light up the whole blade. So we'll see how that turns out, but this is looking really good. It looks pretty damn close to the 1144 high grades beam. That's what I modeled it after. And it's got dimension to it, as you can see. That was key. Getting that bend. And I'm glad I was able to do it without cutting the pieces out, shaving them down at an angle and gluing them back together, because then that would mean this 3-piece side would be 6 pieces. But yeah, using my Dremel, yes, it is an actual Dremel, to score or cut a groove right down the middle of each one so I can bend it, especially at a curve. It's freehand, but it does the job. You can see a bit squiggly there, but it does the job. So yeah, that's one side. I gotta get the other side and then figure out lighting or the light structure. I know how I'm gonna light it. It's just figuring out how I'm gonna, what I'm gonna mount it to.
For the LEDs, I use a cob LED strip, the type that has tiny LEDs placed close to each other. The strip runs off 5 volts, which is perfect for the compact power source I plan to use. It looks extremely bright on camera, but it does emit a nice green color. I start painting the blade. I use RC body paint, which is a paint specific for use on Lexan or polycarbonate. Once the paint dries, I cut out strips of polycarbonate about 8mm thick. This is what the LED strip will mount to light up the perimeter of the blade. I glue it to one side of the blade, doing my best to space it just right from the edge so that it can also act as an internal brace when both blade halves are assembled. Now, I don't mind that the superglue and accelerant create some residue on these parts, since I plan on diffusing it further with paint. And now, I can mount the LEDs onto the polycarbonate strip. With the LEDs mounted, I proceed to glue the two halves together. I really take my time doing this, making sure the pieces are lined up as best as I can get them, and making sure they have good adhesion. Also, for the LEDs, I decided to put another strip along the inside of the mounting strip, which will illuminate the inside of the blade as opposed to mounting an LED from where the emitter box will be, which I did test and found out it doesn't light up that well. I move on to making the main box. I pull a pattern off my old one and transfer it to some 6mm foam PVC. It's gonna need to handle the weight of the blade, so EVA foam alone wouldn't work. I finished making the emitter box and tested with the blade, which, as you can see, is airbrushed on the outside. I mainly tested to see and feel how it will handle the weight of the blade.
So this seems to hold together well with the weight of the blade. The blade is not that heavy, but at that point, at the very tip, there's a lot of weight there. Because when I hold it there, I can feel it. So I got the emitter box here, and the main body, or side of it, I plan on not making it move, because there's no point. I want this to be as rigid as possible. So actually gluing it together like this, because there's a lot of surface area for glue to make contact, should be strong enough, but I'm going to reinforce it more because it's going to have a lot of weight hanging off of it. And I still need to figure out what I can make for the blade to wedge into here better, because it does wedge in. I just push it in, and I'm just holding it right here. It will stay, but I want it more reinforced because I'm going to be holding this thing and doing poses and stuff. And I have to be really careful when doing that, because I don't want anything bad to happen. I don't want anything to break. I don't want anyone else to get hurt by this large weapon prop. So, but it wedges in there nice. I might make some pieces to go inside here because see, it's wedged in there. The cross section of the Scythe blade is a diamond, and the emitter obviously is a rectangle. So I can fashion some pieces in here to accommodate the shape of the diamond. It'll hold together a lot better. Light it up. And that instant change. It actually looks good in person. In pictures, it's just gonna blow out like that. Pictures and video. But whatever. It's pretty much meant for that. And yeah, also to look cool in person. The tip. You can see the tip. It's dark. that's fine, whatever. But yeah. So this is how that's gonna mount. This is a lot cleaner compared to the foam one. Couple wedge in there. I'll figure out how to further clamp this into here, because it's gonna need to be all as one and not fall out or anything.
I continue assembling the main box, which isn't too hard. Boxes are easy, so there's nothing too complicated about it. And here's the box mocked up. In my opinion, it looks a lot cleaner compared to the foam one. Now I start adding electrical components. For the power source, I use an 18650 lithium-ion battery. On the front of the box, there's a cylinder detail, so I use the actual battery itself for that part. I wrap it in 1mm self-adhesive foam and glue it in place. Just like the first box I made, I install a paint roller handle inside so the box can screw onto the painter's pole I plan to use for the staff. I make a template for the bottom plate, cutting out 2 holes, one for the end of the paint handle and another for the flashlight switch I plan to use, and I transfer it to 3mm foam PVC. I wire everything up. I solder a JST connector that will plug into the beam. The flashlight parts I'm using includes a power switch and a USB-C charging port. Then I glue everything together. I spray the box with a black vinyl spray paint, as well as the 1-inch thick wall PVC pipe I plan to use for the staff. Then everything gets a coat of silver spray paint, as well as a top coat. And here we are. The light-up beam sight to my Deathscythe cosplay. The reason I'm far back is so this can be in shot. I'm gonna see how tall it is compared to me. I can't even reach the top of the blade, barely. But yeah, this is a little taller, maybe like a couple inches taller, and the blade is longer, about by a foot or so. And of course, not sure how well that's lit up on screen. But yes. This shit finally lights up, look at that. You still see some hot spots, but that's fine. It looks really good in person. Well illuminated. Not perfect, but damn well good enough for me. Now obviously this has more weight to it. It's very, obviously top heavy. And I'm gonna have to be careful handling this, especially when I'm wearing that suit. Heavier, longer blade that is not as durable as the foam one, obviously. I've dropped it once and it's split on the tip here because it's just super glued. So that kind of busted open. I was able to just close it back up and glue it. So other than that, it finally has a light up beam sight. It's really cool. I'm using a flashlight for the power source and the guts from it, so it has all these different modes that I don't really care about. So it'll just be on. But yes, I have the blade glued into the emitter here. Here's used a combination of goop and super glue with accelerant, and it's pretty solid. I had to go back and reinforce the painter handle in here. I had to remove this bottom handle, which I made removable. I put 4 screws on it in case I need to service it. It doesn't really affect the structural integrity too much. And then this piece is carried over from my last beam sight. I didn't need to make another one. It all just got new paint. And just like my old beam sight, this
comes off, I can unscrew it from the painter's bowl and plug it into a USB-C and recharge it if needed. But yeah, what do you think of that? I have a thing up here so I can't really put it up higher. This thing finally lights up, and I will be debuting this at SAC Anime Winter, which is a week from now. So I got this done just in time. I'm not gonna lie, this felt like work. The blade was very labor intensive for me. Figuring out how to get it to this. So, I mean, polycarbonate is not too bad of a material to work with, but when it's a certain thickness, it can be. It took some doing to create this hole, this bend, this crease right here, right down the middle, but I found a way to do that. This is the new beam sight for my Deathscythe cosplay. This needed to happen. So, let me know what you think about this. A big necessity for the cosplay, because I was getting tired of the foam one. That was a just for now Scythe. But yeah, it needed to be more than just painted foam. So it's painted polycarbonate and it glows or lights up. It's pretty sick. Well, yeah, I look forward for more Gundam content from me and other stuff. I got more ideas for the Odin scale Lego stuff as well. So until then, look, I can touch the button. Until then, I'll see you in the next one.